that the final stage of monetary hegemony, where the money still has power, but can no longer kind of describe honestly what it's doing to preserve that power?
Well, it is. It was, as Hemingway said, it was temporary prosperity. It was an exorbitant privilege, as a French official said in the 70s. And it was, as John Connolly said, the Treasury Secretary, when we decoupled, our currency, your problem. We had this exorbitant privilege 55 years ago when we decoupled. The dollar was still the world reserve currency. It was the post-44 dollar. It was the dollar that was part of the country that saved Europe from fascism with the help of the Soviets. It was the dollar of the New York Yankees, Clark Gable, in the golden age. And it really was an exorbitant privilege for many decades. Even after we decoupled from gold, we had that runoff effect of still being the world reserve currency. We could export our inflation. We could print as many dollars as we wanted. The rest of the world had to eat that sandwich because we created a petrodollar system, which we can talk about. It's very important. It's a pillar to our exorbitant privilege, where the world had to buy our oil, or the world's oil, including the Middle East oil, in our currency. That's an amazing sponge for an otherwise debased, watered down dollar that kept demand for the dollar global and universal, and for many, many years absorbed that inflation beautifully. Wasn't good for the rest of the world, was great for us. Again, our problem, our dollar, your problem. And that worked for many, many decades. We also have to remember that the the Saudis and the OPEC nations that were basically forced on this petrodollar at gunpoint also had to take some of their oil revenue and use it to buy US Treasuries. So not only was there a great sponge for US dollars, there was a great demand for the US Treasury. That was an absolute win-win for the John Connolly era, Nixon era America. And for decades that worked, with some hiccups along the way. That too is coming to a painful and violent end right now for a number of reasons. So that petrodollar is weakening. That six-shooter of the petrodollar is still a gun, but it has less bullets now, with the UAE pulling out of OPEC, et cetera, the world buying oil outside of the dollar at an accelerating rate. So we're seeing, in addition to our debt embarrassment, we're seeing a petrodollar system that's weakening. And of course, at the same time we created the petrodollar, we also added futures contracts through the CME and the COMEX, because the biggest threat to the dollar after we decoupled was gold and silver. So we created a permanent short, legalized price fixing on the COMEX and in the LBMA markets in London. That too, since November of 2024, is getting weaker. It's not the end yet. It's not even the end of the dollar, but the combination of the COMEX weakness, the LBMA weakness, and now the petrodollar weakness and war is just accelerating an historical template, which again has been repeated over and over for centuries. And it's hard for many very proud Americans, of which I am still, despite it all, a patriot, and I am an American. It's hard to see history when you're in it. It's like a fish. You don't see the water when you're swimming in it. But between the mechanizations at the COMEX, the failures at the petrodollar, the failures of our foreign policy, and most importantly, pre-war, the failures of our monetary and fiscal policies, the debt binge we've enjoyed like children without chaperones for decades, the karma for that is finally coming home to roost. We've just debased our dollar too much after 55 years post-71 of spending without tears, deficits without tears, and lying to the world that monetary theory or money printing would save us from a debt crisis. It's a shameful policy. And it really rests in the bathroom mirrors of our policymakers at the Eccles Building and at the White House, red or blue. They're all to blame. We can't blame the world on the fact that we've mismanaged our